On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, Toronto takes down the Pelicans for their 6th win in 7 games, and their defense continues to look like the 2004 Detroit Pistons.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey! What's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, January the 28th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can also find the show on Instagram, and you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, link in the description of the podcast. And it's a place where we're definitely not ever disagreeing about tanking versus winning and the virtues of both. Not once. Come hang out. Great little listener community we got building around the show. Not even little. There's lots of sickos in there. Come be part of the sicko den. Of course, you can also go and support the daily newsletter. You can go and go to the QR code on the screen or the link in the description of the podcast to support the Locked On Raptors newsletter, where you get fresh piping hot blogs from me 5 days a week. And you also get Katie Heindel 4 days a week with a national look at the league. You get Michael Shearer basketball poetry every Thursday, Josh Lloyd fantasy tips, and it's all for the low, low price of On the House right to your email. You can kill company time whilst you read my emails. What a wonderful thing. Of course, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, and Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win that bet. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right. On today's show, talking about the Toronto Raptors taking down the New Orleans Pelicans 113-104 to improve to a fresh, hot 14-32, baby. 6 wins in 7. The dream of 500 still on the table. Believe! And we will get into the Raptors' offensive struggles in this game, which were a thing and have been a thing of late. We will talk about that. We'll get into the good, the bad, and the as we always do. But we got to start with the Raptors' defense, which is kicking ass right now. And right now, over the last 7 games in the NBA, it is the number 1 defensive unit overall. It's just 7 games. It's not even a 10th of the season. But if you had told me at the start of this season that the Raptors defense that employed Grady Dick and RJ Barrett at the 2 and 3 would have any stretch of any point this season where they were the number 1 defense over 7 games, I would have said, you're out of your mind, or something horrible has happened to the other 29 defenses. And yet, this is where we are right now. The Raptors defense has been incredible. Number 1 again over the last 7 games. And it was awesome again last night against the Pelicans. Look, Zion Williamson got his way. There's only so much you can do to stop the Thing from the Fantastic Four. He's really good. But other than that, the Raptors did a damn good job slowing the Pelicans down in this one. Look, the Pelicans shot poorly too, 6 of 28 from 3. Some variance there in there surely, but the Raptors were just like really tight, really connected as they have been of late. And it all starts, of course, with Scottie Barnes, who before this game was having his all defense candidacy read off via scroll by Darko Rajakovic in his pregame availability. And he kind of dug into like all the reasons why Scottie Barnes should be considered for all defense. And if you take out the fact that the Raptors are 14-32 and have the 25th best defense in the NBA over the course of the full season, which is a big part of what goes into the voting, no doubt. But if you just look at the individual stuff Scottie Barnes is doing, there's no doubt there's an all-defense case there. He's been ridiculous. He has been world-class defensively for a long, long time this season at this point, and all year long has driven defensive performance for this team more than anybody else. They are a top 10 defense when Scottie Barnes is on the floor, at least equivalent to that, and they are the worst defense in basketball when he's not. A lot of that is context. A lot of that is there are not a whole lot of other really excellent defensive players on this team, but Scottie Barnes himself is doing it and walking the walk. And last night, again, he was just everywhere. 3 steals, a block, guarding in space, protecting at the rim, blowing things up, swallowing up possessions. It's been remarkable to watch. You know, even Jakob Poeltl after the game was asked about Scottie and what he's doing defensively and sort of Darko's comments about his all-defense candidacy. And he was just kind of sitting there impressed and sort of amazed at what Scottie can do while carrying such a big offensive burden for this team right now, especially with Emmanuel Quickley out. with him having to carry so much on offense and yet still being everything to the Raptors defense, like that's a massive burden to carry. And he's doing it beautifully right now. It's been so fun to watch Scottie Barnes make this defensive leap. And I have no doubt at this point that all defense teams line his future, whether it's this year or down the line, it's going to happen. He's just too good. He's just too everywhere for that not to be the case. And the defensive uptick for this team starts with him, no doubt. Jakob Poeltl, by the way, no slouch in this one. He was fantastic. One of his better games as a Raptor, I reckon. 21 points, 14 boards, 5 assists, 10 of 14 from the field, 3 blocks, a plus 20 to lead the team. He was incredible in this game. And again, it was a tough start for him at the start of the year defensively, right? It didn't quite look like he had his full sort of footwork there. He was getting left in no man's land by bad perimeter defense a lot. He just didn't quite seem to have the same juice as like a rim protector and all that stuff. And his numbers for the full season as a rim protector still aren't incredible. He's, defending at just below or just above a league average clip when it comes to shots at the rim that he's defending. Like, it's nothing amazing. He's not Rudy Gobert out there, but he's getting by. And I think what he's doing to just kind of connect the defense, tie things together, what he's doing in space, I feel like he's doing an awesome job moving his feet with guards and then wings. Like, that's been a pretty heavy feature of his defense over the last few games here. And in this game against the Pelicans, a couple instances, one kind of stands to mind where DeJounte Murray has the ball in the wing. Jakob Poeltl switched out onto him. Murray tries to, just cook him off the bounce, and Poeltl just shuffles his feet and slides with him and ends up, kind of walling off his drive like 12 feet from the basket. He has to kick it out, reset the possession. That's just the stuff Jakob Poeltl's been doing pretty routinely of late here as the team's defense has come into form. He's been fantastic. And that backbone of Scottie and Poeltl, it just gives you a lot of sort of defensive integrity, even if the stuff around them, the perimeter, is maybe not so awesome, which we'll get to. There's been slight improvements there too, in particular RJ Barrett. And obviously Davion Mitchell, we'll talk about here in a second too, has been a big part of it. But those two guys as the backbone, it gives you a floor. And that is great, right? Like, it's bizarre, man. This season, you came in and I thought if the Raptors were going to be successful, it was going to be like the 2022-23 Kings model, where it's just like this team that is all offense with a kind of not great defense, but the offense outscores the problems. I really thought that would be the case for this team. It's been the total opposite over this last little stretch. We'll get into how the offense is not playing super well right now. But yeah, they're basically the inverse of that Kings team from a couple of years ago, where they were incredible on offense and terrible on defense. Kind of the opposite for the Raptors right now. Again, over the course of 7 games, not a full season. Like those Kings put those numbers up. But Davion Mitchell, look, I've had my misgivings, but he's been incredible on defense. There's no doubt about it. He's got the number 2 on-off point differential when it comes to defense of anyone on the team behind Scottie Barnes. He makes the defense go a little more than when Emmanuel Quickley is in there, because his whole thing is he's a nasty point of attack defender. DeJounte Murray looked terrible in this game. DeJounte Murray might just be terrible. So, take that for what it's worth, but he goes 5 of 17, and Davion Mitchell's fingerprints are all over that. Trae Young, the last couple of games out in Atlanta, just totally stifled him, especially in that game Saturday, was awesome. And, when you have a guy like Davion Mitchell at the point of attack, it does make everything a little easier for everyone else, right? And, look, the Raptors haven't played teams with like wonderfully dynamic wings necessarily. Obviously, the Celtics game was one of them, but beyond that, like, Paolo Banchero still kind of getting his way back in that Magic game, and Franz Wagner wasn't there, and their whole offense was kind of not there because they're so injured. The Hawks without Jalen Johnson for most of their 2 games they played against them. Like, there will be times where the wing defense gets more exposed than it has over the stretch of schedule, but Davion Mitchell's done a damn good job and deserves a ton of praise for what he's done to spearhead this defense and kind of have it all take shape around him, right? He's that point of attack guy. You've got Scottie and Yak as the sort of backline dudes. And yeah, the wing stuff isn't incredible, but if you get like average defense out of your wings, all of a sudden things look a little better. And on that note, RJ Barrett, credit to him, man. The last 2 games out is like some of the best defense he's played as a Raptor. Now, do I think this is the new RJ Barrett forever? No, I'm going to just see a whole lot more to think that this is the new RJ Barrett on defense, but he's been given a damn. He had a beautiful rim contestant stop on Zion Williamson last night. That's not an easy thing to do, but he did the verticality thing. He blew it up. That was great. He's been a little more punchy at the point of attack. He's not kind of getting moved off his spot as easily. That's been awesome. Again, we'll see as they play more sort of big bruising wings. They've got like the Rockets coming up. I'm sure he's going to have to guard the god Amen Thompson at some point. That's not going to be fun, probably. It's not going to be fun for anybody because Amen Thompson rules right now. There are going to be times where the matchup is a little more unfavorable towards RJ Barrett and Grady Dick on the wings. But right now, they're making it work. And even Grady, I think the Saturday game, he wasn't very good. Last night, he got in foul trouble and didn't play a ton. Thought his offense was just fine. Darko Rajakovic had nothing bad to say about him in this game afterwards. But the game Saturday wasn't very good. And we've seen the quick hook for Grady when the defense isn't working. But I think that kind of goes into something Darko said after the game last night, where he just kind of talked about how, you can have all the good defensive game planning you want. If there's one guy in five who's not bringing the juice, who's not bringing the effort, then it's all going to come unspooled. It's all going to fall apart. And they have not had that one guy who's just like not bringing it, right? You can be a less than defensively talented guy, but if you're there in the right spots and you're rotating to the right spots and your head is on a swivel and you're attentive and you're not getting back cut to oblivion like the Raptors have loved to do this year, they've not been getting back cut as much lately. Like that can sort of make it more of a sum of the parts thing, right? And I think we're seeing that these last couple of games, especially with RJ Barrett. Bruce Brown deserves a ton of credit too. He's been closing some games. He's been playing heavy minutes off the bench, and he's been awesome. And his defense has been super tenacious, really in guys' shirts. And he's just kind of like not getting moved off the point of attack either. He's been super stout. That's been great. A lot of good stuff is happening for this defense right now. And look, eventually Emmanuel quickly is going to come back, and that's going to change the calculus for the defense a little bit. Now, things get a little easier. If RJ Barrett's playing like he has the last couple games, again, got to see a lot more of that. It can't just be 2 games. That has to be like RJ Barrett every single night for this whole thing to work, which we'll see. Jury's still very much out on that. Quickly is going to bring, some defensive challenges that Davion Mitchell does not. That said, the offense has not exactly been tearing things apart lately. And so maybe there's some balance to be found by bringing Quickly back and moving Mitchell back to his role in the second unit with maybe some sort of spot minutes in second, as a second guard in lineups next to Quickly. There's something there. We will examine that coming up. Because as much as the defense has been incredible, and it was the reason they won this game against the Pelicans, after a bit of a let up in the third quarter, thought they locked it down in the fourth. In their first quarter, they gave it 40 the first half. They gave it 40 points in the first half. Incredible. The defense has been, again, the best defense in the league over the last 7 games. The offense, not so much. And they are missing Emmanuel Quickly. We'll get into why that is and the search for balance coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. And look, maybe you're someone who really cares about Gatorade colors. That's still a thing you can throw money down on. I'm, of course, a team lemon lime, always going to be rooting for my guys, lemon lime. And so maybe you want to throw some money down on lemon lime winning and being the winning Gatorade color. You can go and do that among so many other things over at FanDuel ahead of the Super Bowl. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. And the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, you bet $5 and potentially win up to $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. That's icing on the cake. Download the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Back at it here on your Tuesday edition of Locked On Raptors, talking about the Raptors taking down the Pelicans 113-104. They are 6-1 in their last 7, and they play the Wizards on Wednesday. So streak continuing, methinks. Let's get into what are we getting into? The offense. That's what we're getting into. I lost my spot in my notes. The offense has a ways to go. And we saw last night the limitations of what the Raptors are rolling out with their starting 5, with a lot of Davion Mitchell minutes, and with Scottie Barnes, frankly, being extremely burdened to carry the day for this offense. It was not a good first half of offense for Scottie Barnes in this game. He finishes the game just 6 of 21, 1 of 7 from downtown. The threes just aren't falling for him right now. It's just not going in. And, I don't totally think the looks he got in the first half were bad looks. A lot of them were pretty in motion, in the flow of the offense, that is. And they were wide open and kind of in rhythm. I didn't have a problem putting them up. They're just not falling right now. And so I think what Scottie Barnes has done smartly the last couple games is first half happens, three's not falling. Okay, I'm just going to go do the things that I'm good at now. And he very much did that to kind of get the Raptors over the finish line in this one. They scored 39 points in the fourth quarter after just 18 in the third. The offense was as much the problem in the third quarter as the defense was, frankly. And, they got it going. But yeah, this is not a team that is lighting the Nets on fire at the moment. In this 7-game stretch, while they have the number 1 defense, they have the number 21 offense over the last 7 games, 106.7 offensive rating. Last night, not particularly awesome, a 24th percentile offensive rating, a 92.7 offensive rating in the half court, 35th percentile over the course of the entire season in terms of, games played across the league. They're not exactly winning with beautiful, intricate offense right now, which again is kind of counter to what you thought the formula might be for this team at the season's outset when you looked at the skill sets and, who was good at what and who's not good at other things. And look, credit to the Pelicans. I thought they defended really well in this game. Yves Missi, he was awful on offense, but really good around the rim, kind of contested a ton of stuff. And I think Zion was really damn good defensively in this one too. Gave Scottie a lot of problems. And he's just such a bull of an athlete, right? I thought he was pretty handsy. He had some nice blow-ups at the rim, a couple blocks. Like, it was really good stuff from Zion in this one too. If you're a Pelicans fan, I imagine that felt pretty good. But yeah, otherwise, it just, the offense just like, on top of what the Pels did, the offense just couldn't really get into a great flow in this one. Scottie Barnes was, I think, put into a lot of uncomfortable spots by the Pelicans defense in this game. They were doubling like really quick off the catch and sort of forcing quick passes. And a couple times he totally carved the Pelicans up. And credit to Scottie, by the way, 8 assists and just 1 turnover in this game, in a game where he was seeing all kinds of double teams and traps and second bodies, third bodies. That's really great. Like, you love to see that. If you're going to start double teaming Scottie Barnes and he's going to play make out of it without turning it over, look out. Good luck trying to stop that if you're an opposing defense, because Scottie is one of the single best passers in the world. And so, this is sort of a thing that teams have to do now when Scottie catches it in that mid-range. Really big deal. This is like the sort of downstream effects of him becoming a killer mid-range shooter. Is now teams are terrified of him scoring from that offense, that office. And now good things are flowing out of that because he's such a great playmaker. Basketball, a pretty simple game. But even then, this is not a game where the Raptors were really turning, Scottie double teams into beautiful offense. They weren't finishing a ton. They go 9 of 33 from deep in this game. And look, the way the roster is built, even at full health, there are just always going to be those trade-offs I talked about, right? And right now they are trading in offense for defense. And to their credit, it's working. They're 6-1 in their last 7 games. They've beaten some good teams along the way, some bad teams along the way, but they've taken care of business. Like, there's nothing to turn your nose up at over what they've done here, but the formula has been a little weird, and I'm not sure how sustainable it really is. Like, I don't think that the number 1 defense in the NBA, that would be quite a stretch. But hey, maybe things have changed, and Scottie Barnes is just that good, and he's the best defensive player alive this side of Wemby. Don't think that's really the case, but hey, we'll see how this sample sustains itself or does not. But either way, like, again, the offense is the thing they're trading in right now. You got Scottie Barnes shooting 27% from 3. Getting a non-shooting big man in Jakob Poeltl, who, again, creates space and does things to grease the offense along very well, despite not being a deep shooting threat. But when you couple that with Davion Mitchell not being a guy that defenses really care about, he's not someone who's creating advantages when he has the ball in his hands. Like, there's just not a lot in terms of like pure offensive creativity within this starting 5 right now. And I think in particular, the Scottie Davion minutes, great defensively, no doubt about it. Those guys are killer as a 2-man tandem defensively, especially when you bring in Jakob Poeltl to the mix. But offensively, it almost feels like Davion possessions and Scottie possessions kind of operate in their own silos. Like, there's not a whole lot of interactivity between how those guys play offense, just because, there's not a lot of space to be had between the two. Defenses don't care about Davion Mitchell shooting, and they don't really care about Scottie shooting at this point either. And so, like, those two guys, like, 2-man actions don't really generate a whole lot. It's you're kind of running Jakob pick and roll with Mitchell, and then Scottie doing his own thing. And again, it's just sort of this disparate offense. It's not totally humming along right now. It's better when Grady Dick is out there and he's moving and he's cashing threes and he's moving towards the rim. Kelly Olynyk obviously has helped grease things along. He's been unavailable the last few games, so that's been tough. But yeah, like, it's just the offensive fit and the offensive potency of this lineup is just not that great. The Raptors starters are not performing very well right now. They are a minus 6.7 net rating. The starting lineup that's currently playing right now, Mitchell, Dick, Barrett, Barnes, and Poeltl, minus 6.7 net rating on the season. And even over the last 7 games, minus 5.7 net rating with an offensive rating of 105.5, which would rank 29th in the league over the course of the full season ahead of only the Wizards. Like, the offense is not getting by here all that much. And at some point, it feels like when the defense is no longer the best defense in the league, the offense is going to catch up to them and the lack of balance is going to hurt them. And so it is really interesting to kind of think about what they're going to do when Emmanuel quickly comes back. We may see some times where quickly plays with Mitchell in sort of a small 2-guard lineup. And I think that can work. Like, if you put in Mitchell for Grady Dick or RJ Barrett, yeah, you're compromising some offense for sure, but quickly helps offset that, especially with this pull-up shooting threat, which no one on this team really provides right now. Like, such a valuable thing to have from your guards, and they just haven't had it for all but 9 games this year. It's tough stuff. Like, there's a reason the offense has kind of chugged along at sort of a, bottom 10 rate all season long. For them to be 21st over the last 7, like, that's actually an improvement upon where they've been for most of the year, and it's still no great shakes at all. And you're seeing that it's just like night to night. There are some spells where they just don't quite have it cooking. And again, that's to the spacing stuff. But when IQ's back, like, first of all, I got to dispel any sort of idea that, like, IQ's not starting when he's back. Of course he's starting. Don't be stupid. Like, he's starting over Davion Mitchell. Maybe Mitchell gets some closing minutes next to a Grady or RJ Barrett, but as much as Mitchell's been really good, there's still every possibility he's traded between now and February 6th, which is just like 9 days away now. And even if he's not, like, he's not as much a part of the future plans for this team as IQ, as Grady Dick, as RJ Barrett. And you're not going to see him start. It's just not going to happen. And the offense will benefit from that. There's no doubt about it. Like, when Quickly is in, as much as the numbers haven't been great this season, we're talking about 9 games and really 6 games of him playing consecutively with the 1 game at the start of the year and the 2 games in the middle when he first came back. And then he missed all that time with the UCL thing. And then he played 6 games. Like, he hasn't had a sustained run of actually, like, building a legitimate data sample for us to pull from and have any sort of real takeaways from. But he's going to make the offense better. How much the defense struggles is an open question. And again, like, if RJ Barrett's defending the way he has the last couple of games and his league average, and Emmanuel Quickly is league average, which I think he has the juice to be, then maybe you get by because Scottie and Yak are that good and your offense is humming along. Or maybe you have to make some concessions, right? Maybe you swap in Grady Dick for an Ochai Agbaji, who returned last night, didn't play a ton of minutes, didn't look awesome, but, hopefully he can kind of get back in the groove here. Maybe that's a way to do it. Like, there are ways to sort of find the balance with this offense, but the real sort of overarching conundrum is that there isn't a whole lot of two-way guys on this team. And so there's always going to be those concessions. You're rarely going to find a time with this collection of players where they are top 10 in both offense and defense over the course of a stretch. It's going to be one or the other. They're going to either be a really good offense where the defense is hemorrhaging or vice versa, like we're seeing right now. And that just speaks to, like, there's still a lot of work to be done in this roster. In the draft this summer, as they develop guys along and try to incorporate, can Jonathan Mobo become more of a two-way guy? Can Jakob Poeltl become a two-way guy? Can Jamal Shed kind of hone the defensive fouling issues and get the three-point shot back online and, be a two-way player? Like, that's what they need here, is more two-way guys to make these lineups tenable. Until then, we're going to see these flips of stretches where they're really good on offense or really good on defense and not so good at the other end. And that's just the way it is. But yeah, like, they're 6-1 in the last 7. Like, I don't know. There's not that much to complain about. It's not the offense has been horrible, Wizards bad or anything like that. It's just a thing to keep in mind that this is going to change. The formula is going to change when Quickly comes back. And there may be ways they can mitigate it to find some balance, but it's not going to be super easy with this collection of players. One quick note on the offense to go on a high note. They're doing a good job busting zones. In this game, the Pelicans threw out a zone. I think it was late in the 3rd quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And this was kind of a stretch that got the Raptors back into it. It might have been early 4th quarter. Either way, it kind of turned things back around for the Raptors after a bit of a bad spell at the start of that 3rd quarter, where they were zoning up the Raptors. And, the Raptors weren't bombing away threes and busting the zone that way. But this is a thing they've been doing quite a bit this year, and it makes sense considering a lot of their stuff happens at the rim, and they have a lot of guys who move well and pass well. They've just kind of torn apart zones with cool-ass passing, which is great. We saw it last night, Poeltl and Brown in particular, connecting on a bunch of stuff, Scottie in there too. And I think they went away from that zone super quickly because the Raptors just kind of figured it out, lickety split. And that's great. That's the thing, right? If you can get zoned up, but figure out how to make the team go away from it pretty quickly, you're not going to get zoned up all that much. Even if you're not a great 3-point shooting team, there are ways to do it. And the way the Raptors are able to kind of flash to the middle and cut and pass off of that, it's huge. And I think that was a nice little note for the offense last night. One of their better stretches of offense, frankly, was 5 or 6 possessions, probably, at most, where the Pelicans threw out zone, and the Raptors said, all right, we'll see your zone, and we're going to pass you to death because passing's cool, and we get buckets that way, baby. We're going to come back on the other side, close things out. The good, the bad, and the way we round out every single episode of this here podcast on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. Should they just keep Bruce Brown? We'll get to that coming up and more in just one sec. Wrapping it up here on your Tuesday edition of Locked On Raptors. Thanks so much for being along as always. And we got the good, the bad, and the here. The thing I liked, the thing I didn't like, the thing that's got me a little bit intrigued about the latest Toronto Raptors basketball game, the way we round out every single episode of this here podcast on the heels of a game that is played by your local basketball team. Let's get to the good. Scottie, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Scottie changing his approach deeper in games. Second straight game where he's done this, where he's been a little 3-point happy early and kind of jacked a little more than he'd like. And as the game went along, he just kind of streamlined down to the stuff he's real good at. Darko talked after the game about how Scottie was able to find like better angles to attack from down the stretch of this game. The fourth quarter, I thought, was just like a really dominant effort. You look at the scoreboard, he comes into the game and he's like a minus 11 to start the fourth quarter, and he ends up being an even, I believe, by the end of it. Just kind of like, again, that winning minute stuff that he's doing. This was not a great Scottie Barnes game all told on both ends of the floor by any means. It's a real offensive struggle. Zion gave him some trouble, but overall, just the overall impact, 21, 11, and 8 still, 3 steals, a block. Like, he's just everywhere, man. By the way, I forgot to say, he won Player of the Week. That's rad, too. That's a bonus good. Scottie Barnes winning Player of the Week. Totally deserved for what he did last week on both ends of the floor. And he's, again, the biggest reason why this team is winning the way it is right now. He's been awesome. And that changing of approach in the second half, I have no problem if he's going to take some threes early and then realize they're not falling and then kind of adapt to that. You got to take threes at some point, especially when you're without quickly and you need the volume. But the fact that he just kind of went away from it down the stretch and said, all right, I'm going to score at the rim. I'm going to score in close, and I'm going to get to the freaking line. Getting to the line, man. He's doing it lately. 9 free throws again last night. I think 7 and 7 the games before that. Scottie Barnes getting to the line. That's a surefire way to help even out that efficiency too, even with the wonky shooting nights. The bad, speaking of wonky shooting, 3-point shooting in general, bad in this game. Stinky from both teams, really. Pelicans 6 of 28, Raptors 9 of 33. But the Raptors, not so good in this one. We've mentioned Scottie's 1 of 7. Davion Mitchell, 1 of 4. RJ Barrett, 1 of 4. Grady Dick, 1 of 4. Not the greatest of nights. They really were just sustained by Chris Boucher going 4 of 9 because he's ridiculous and can't stop hitting everything. He's shooting like 53% from deep over his last 10 games. Okay, sure. Very normal. It's nuts. But yeah, other than that, not a great 3-point shooting night. Jamal Shed goes 1 of 5 in this game. And thanks, Jamal Shed. I write about your shooting uptick and how exciting it is and the mechanical changes. And then he goes ice cold as soon as that post hits the internet. That's how this game works, baby. But yeah, I think it'll come around. It's a long process here. Jamal Shed's jumper was not going to be made in a couple of weeks or anything like that. There will be swoons where he goes 1 of 5, and that's how it goes. But yeah, not a great 3-point shooting game at all from the Raptors in this one. Though I will say the 3 Davion Mitchell hit in the fourth quarter of this game, like every 3 that guy hits feels like finding $20 in the couch cushions, man. You don't expect them at all. When they do go in, it's awesome, and it kind of changes his overall impact on the game. Just kind of like that. It's almost like, remember back when the Raptors were playing the Celtics in that second round series back in the bubble, where anytime Daniel Tice hit a 3, it was like, oh God, Daniel Tice hitting a 3, really? Okay, I guess this is going to determine the outcome of this game. Kind of feels like that with Davion Mitchell, but he's a guard. We love those found money threes, though. All right, to wrap things up. Bruce Brown, are they just going to keep Bruce Brown? And should they just keep Bruce Brown? I don't know, man. Like, I'm growing skeptical that there's going to be anything out there for Bruce unless he's involved in a Jimmy Butler trade, which, hey, with him getting indefinitely suspended by the team yesterday and the report today that the Heat are eager to find a deal, maybe it happens. And Bruce Brown, I think, certainly gets moved in that trade if the Raptors are going to jump in and grease the wheels of it. And that might net them a first-round pick, honestly. One of those Suns first-rounders they got in that 1 for 3 type deal could very much come the Raptors' way. It won't be a great first round pick. It'll probably be the Cavs pick this year, I think, is how it works out. Which I don't know if you've seen the standings. Not going to be a high pick, but a first rounder is a first rounder. And if you can get a first rounder for Bruce Brown on an expiring contract, you take that and run. Beyond that, though, having a hard time seeing where the deal is, just because $23 million is hard for like a team-to-team trade for a rental bench player. And, a lot of the teams that you're seeing kind of interested in him, the Nuggets in particular, like they're kind of hoping for the buyout market to transpire. And honestly, if you get through the deadline and you haven't traded Bruce Brown, I'm not buying him out. Like, keep him around, have him play the rest of this season, and then maybe see what you can do with him in the summer. He talked last week about how happy he is in Toronto, how amazing the experience has been. And guys say things all the time and they don't mean anything. But like, if there's any world in which you can convince Bruce Brown to stick around on 3 years, 30, 3 years, 36, something like that, to just be a really nice, very playable veteran who can close games for you, I don't see the harm in that. If you're only going to get, some sort of poo-poo second round pick for him at best, if anything, or buying out is the other option. Like, I don't know, man. I would rather just see if you can kind of keep things going here with Bruce Brown. I talked about it last week. One way or another, if you trade all the vets this year, you're going to have to find new vets for next year, because it's pretty clear having veteran players who know how to play basketball, pretty important to playing winning basketball, playing competitive basketball. We've seen it with the Pistons. We've seen it with the Raptors this month, where lo and behold, Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk get healthy, Chris Boucher, Davion Mitchell play well, and all of a sudden, wow, this is a real basketball team. That's fun. You need those types of guys. And so if you're going to have to trade a bunch of them, you're going to have to find some in the summer to replace. But if you can't get stuff for these guys, maybe you just keep Bruce Brown around and he becomes one of those guys that you go into next season with. He becomes one of your, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway type guys that the Pistons have leaned on so hard this year. Malik Beasley falls into that as well. I do feel like right now, Chris Boucher and Davion Mitchell are the two guys who the Raptors should be trying to sell high on right now. Like, I think Boucher in particular, I love what he's doing. It's been unbelievable. I don't think there's any world in which this is just who he is now. It'd be awesome, but he's like 32 and he's shooting 53% from deep over his last 10. Like, at some point that's going to dry up, one would think. Probably. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe this is just who he is. I highly doubt it. And so selling while, striking while the iron's hot and getting what you can for him. Can you get like a bad first out of a team? Maybe with how he's playing. I don't know. He's been ridiculous. Maybe some team gets tricked into thinking that's a good idea. I have no idea. But maybe that's I think the most likely sort of move the Raptors have is trading Chris Boucher right now. And then Davion Mitchell, like, again, I don't know if he's necessarily in the long-term plans of this team as good as he's been defensively of late. And if you can get something for him from a team that needs a little extra defensive juice, I think that's a pretty, reasonable thing to look at as well. And I think anything you can get for Davion Mitchell is probably a good return. And so, yeah, it feels like those guys you'd be selling high on. Bruce Brown, it feels like you'd be selling low on just because of the contractual situation. And if you can keep him around on a cheaper deal to be a helpful bench vet who then you maybe can trade again down the line and a way easier to move deal, that seems like a win-win to me overall. So that's that's where we're at. We'll leave it there, though, and send you off into the rest of your day. We'll be back again tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Raptors defense and like just how sustainable all of this is, what's working, Scottie's all defense case. We're going to talk some D coming up tomorrow. That's going to be a ton of fun. In the meantime, please follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. You can go to the YouTube channel and, subscribe and, do all the good stuff, leave comments, et cetera, et cetera. You can also go and support the newsletter. You got the QR code on the screen. You got the link in the description of the podcast to do it. There's no excuse not to, because it's free, baby. We love free stuff, don't we? In this world where everything costs so much. Good blogs for no dollars. Pretty awesome value proposition, if you ask me. We'll be back again Wednesday. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. Talk soon. Bye-bye.